Good morning, friends. Okay, so I've got a hot topic for you today. I've got a really hot topic going on here. I'm going to grab one thing. I'll be right back just a second here. Okay, I'm back. Just wanted to check something. Okay, so what we've got going on here is a topic that probably is very controversial and very opinionated, and I prefer to stay away from opinions as much as possible, and I like to stick with technical facts and using statistical data and analysis and anything that we can actually measure and prove based on reality per se. So what's actually happened over the past 20 years in the world of web design? What can we actually see has changed, as opposed to what myself or someone else might say as an opinion. So this topic is on the subject of what is open source, and not so much that for this presentation, but more as what is WordPress in relation to being open source, and what does that mean as a business owner for future online presence for your website in the future. So what I'm going to say here is WordPress. And we know that WordPress is open source. And what does open source mean? In very simple terms, very simple, it means that the code, the actual programming code that makes WordPress function, is completely available to you as a business owner or me as a developer. Okay? So in itself, the fact that the code is available, so we have code, and in addition to the code, we have the database. And I don't want to get too technical here to make this beyond a basic presentation for a business owner to understand, but we have the code and database, and each of these obviously work together and work with each other. So now the underlying fundamental in online business, a very underlying, and this is known across the boards, and again, staying away from opinions but sticking with facts, it is known that technology rapidly changes. It's changing all the time. It's changing every second. As I speak right now, there is a new technology related to WordPress being programmed somewhere by someone in the world. And because of this, the need of change, the flexibility of change, needs to be rapid in order to compete in an online market. So what does open source allow us to do? Open source creates an environment where individuals can contribute, can be creative, and enhance technology. And it's a beautiful thing in itself. But at the same time, the open source, what does that allow a business owner that owns a website to do? It allows that business, whatever service or offering they may provide or interface they provide on the internet, whether it's a very basic website with information only with some special unique characteristics for their end users, or it's a very advanced complex website with all types of user interactions, communities, and things like that. So you have to consider that there's all different types of applications, but the important thing to understand is the creativity is unlimited with open source. So I'm going to write unlimited creativity. Now, I'm going to press a hot button now. So on the internet, let's say that there's probably 5 to 10 very prominent build it, do it yourself website services available. I'm not going to say any names. I'm going to stay away from names because I don't want to I don't want to get into a heated discussion about this. There are website builders available on the internet that allow you to basically build a website piece it together. They give you a nice design. You can select from all different kinds of things and kind of build your own site. Now, for some businesses in a very small capacity, this might be okay. And quite frankly, I would recommend it for some businesses. This presentation was mainly more created for the very serious business owner who really wants to predominantly rule online and really wants to offer something special to their clients with their internet presence, not just your run-of-the-mill website or online presence. So I'm more talking to that audience with this information. Now, let's assume that we already know that technology is rapidly changing. Technology is changing every second, boom, 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 across the boards, right? So when we are relying on a builder of some kind, a website building tool that lets you do some of these things, just and maybe you're paying a low monthly cost or free service. Some builders are free, right? You are limited, one, to what that provider can offer you in terms of functionality, design, and anything else. You are also limited in your creativity. And we know that the internet is built on niches. It's a niche market where you offer something a little unique and different with your online presence, and you have a substantial lead in the industry. And you need to be able to be flexible. So having access to this database and code allows a developer, a designer, or what have you, modify to your specifications and your needs and adapt to the market so that you can offer what's needed to your client. So you can create the design that's expected from your potential new customer. And you are not limited in any way, in any regard, to what that website builder company can provide you. And I hope that makes sense. I'm not out to bash the website building companies because, again, for some businesses, for some nonprofits, for some companies that don't have the resources or revenue to be really competitive in a market, those services can be really valuable and they do help. But in terms of being at the top of your game and being constantly creative and in action on how you're going to present your next user experience on your website, however that may be, you want your users to be able to adapt, again, in terms of design, visual display, fonts, and anything else functional, particularly functional aspects. This code and database access is absolutely mandatory to ensure that that is possible. Now, here's the other side of it, and this is another important thing to understand. With this accessibility and this code and database, unlimited creative aspects, the other important thing to actually, before I jump into that, the other really important thing to understand is when you build your website this way in an open source fashion with a database code, everything fully accessible, you can also decide to move your website to a different provider. Example, if you want to move to a different hosting company, that's a completely other option for you. So you can actually move your site around. You can host your website in-house in your office if you want to. There's a tremendous amount of options and flexibility you have for the future. In other words, you're not becoming dependent. You're not becoming too dependent on one provider. You're not becoming too dependent, whereas if something happened with this provider up here that's providing this free service or this monthly service of website builder, you immediately are vulnerable. And let's say, again, you have limitations with how far you can go in terms of functionality and design and everything else with that builder. So your unlimited creativity is cut in half, and for the speed that technology moves, cutting creativity in half is very dangerous for any product or any service provider that has a competitive online presence today. So that is a really important thing to keep in mind. Okay, so back to the other point I was working with. So we know that you can, having the code and database access, you have full access to this information. This also means portability, meaning that if you wanted to have a programmer or designer in-house work on your website. They could be working on it, or the initial developer, as long as you can access the website itself, which obviously on your server you can. So all the open source is available. Now, the other thing to consider on this is the actual costs that can be involved. Now, again, we live in a world where we are used to paying. We pay in value in relation of what we expect in return. And when we go buy the latest smartphone from a phone carrier, we typically pay a bit more for more of an advanced product, something that's going to be a little bit better, more stable. And in a perfect world, we do, right? So when building open source, you have to take into consideration the investment and costs that can sometimes be involved. You have custom development happening, you have custom programming, custom database work, custom design, whatever have you that you want to unleash into the market as your online presence. All of that needs to be taken into consideration in your costs. Now, that website builder company, again, could be a free service, or it could be $29.99 a month, which is very nice for the short term, but again, thinking long term, thinking future, thinking expansion, thinking flexibility. So, and unfortunately, this is a really common thing that I've run into with clients all the way back since 1998. I can recall sitting down with clients, doing consultations, going through processes, and running into this, this scenario. Well, if I can pay, so and so a month and get this, but if I invest a little bit, if I invest up front and pay more, unfortunately, there's been a disconnect between what needs to be invested and what you're going to get long term, and what the ups and downs are of that. So what I'm trying to clarify is some of that. And as a programmer, as a designer, myself working directly on these types of projects every single day, I run into these questions and these problems that my clients have run into in the past. So I hope it's valuable for you, but it's important to understand. And again, it has very much to do how as a business owner, how serious are you about your online presence? How flexible and creative do you really want to be? And we all know, in terms of the internet, the most creative, intuitive usually always wins. And that's just a fact. And unfortunately, again, I'm sticking to facts, not opinions. But statistically, we look at all the websites that we've used in the past and all the online presences we've interacted with, and we recall we like intuitive, we like simple, we like flexible, and very often we like changes if they accommodate us properly. So, and again, I'm speaking for myself as even from a developer viewpoint. I'm speaking in terms of we like an accommodating change that makes life simpler. I'm sure we can all think of a time when we were on using our favorite social network or a specific website for some service, whatever you might have been doing, that you realized there was a new feature or something that you really enjoyed or liked that made your life simpler, that made something easier, that, again, accommodated to you as a user. And that is what open source allows you to do, and that is what WordPress allows you to do as a business owner with that investment, keeping in mind that you will pay for the service that you need to be done right, but in turn, what's your return going to be? What is your client base going to be? How happy are you maintaining your customers? And again, this can apply to a very simple business in terms of a plumber or an electrician or a contractor, to a very elaborate business such as a community directory of some kind or an advertising directory of some kind. This can apply both ways, how you can better service your customer with that unique functionality and that unique creativity that you can apply. So I hope this kind of clarifies what WordPress is and what open source means to you, and having this unlimited creative control. Thank you for listening today, and I will be back with more for you soon.